Hey everyone, welcome back to another CollectA review. Today we'll be taking a look at their new 2020 Hunting Mapusaurus. This figure is part of their standard edition line. It is a lot smaller and in a slightly different pose than the deluxe edition Mapusaurus that we got, I believe was last year. I ended up ordering this figure from Everything Dinosaur. It retails for just around $8. I order a majority of my CollectA and Papo figures from them. I've been a customer of theirs for years, and I've never had an issue with them. So I'll leave a link in the description to Everything Dinosaur if you want to order this figure for yourself. So getting back to this little Mapusaurus figure, I believe this is the first year CollectA did all their theropods without bases, and this Mapusaurus is definitely the best looking one out of all the baseless theropods we got this year. So before we take a closer look at this figure, let's just do a couple quick measurements. This figure is just a hair over 9 inches long from the tip of the tail to the tip of the snout, and just under 2.5 inches tall at the top of the head right here, and just about 3 inches tall at the top of the tail. So Mapusaurus is estimated to average around 33 feet long, but some paleontologists have put the max length around 41 feet, which is much closer to its very close relative Giganotosaurus. So with those measurements, that put this figure somewhere in the 142 scale to the 153 scale range, depending on which measurement you want to go with. Moving on to the pose of this figure, I think CollectA pulled off a really nice bipedal theropod pose on this Mapusaurus. It looks much better than the new Allosaurus and Sultrial Venator. I like how the back and head are much more parallel to the ground compared to those other figures. Later on in the review, when we get to the comparisons, I'll take them out and show you what I'm talking about. On those figures, the head and back are raised much higher, probably to give them a better center of gravity to balance, since they have no bases on them anymore. But if CollectA is going to go hard forward without bases, I would prefer most of their theropods to be sculpted like this Mapusaurus. It looks much more natural this way. Moving on to the color scheme of this figure. The color scheme is the only negative on this figure. I think the color scheme is very bland and boring. It's just a few different shades of green, and that's about it. Yeah, you do have a little bit of red paint on top of the head to highlight that bony crest, and you do have another splash of red under the lower jaw to highlight that dewlap, and then you just have some white paint for the throat and underbelly of the figure. And other than that, it is pretty boring and generic looking, but really can't complain for an $8 figure, even though CollectA has done some really nice paint jobs on figures similar to this size. The teeth are nicely sculpted. They feel very sharp when you push your finger up against them, and they are also very nicely painted. Not too much sloppy paint on this side of the figure right here. I do have a little bit of sloppy paint from when they were painting the gum tissue. Inside the mouth, you have a nicely sculpted tongue done in a matte paint finish. I wish someday CollectA would just give the inside of the mouth a little bit of a shiny coat to give it that wet look. I think the insides of their mouths look very plain and dry looking. And turning the figure around, the head is a little bit more shrink wrapped than the other theropods that we got this year. You can almost make out the inorbital fenestra. The eye is painted in black like 99% of CollectA's other figures. I just wish someday they would add some eye color and a pupil in there. They kind of just look black and soulless with just these black eyes, but it does reflect the light pretty good, so it does give it a little bit of life. You can see some nice scale variation sculpted onto the head right here. You get some large scales along the lip and some smaller scales sculpted in on the rest of the head. Then you have a nice row of spikes that start right at the top of the head that continues all the way down the body to the tip of the tail. Then you have some nice osteoderms sculpted in, speckled all over the body. You get some nice folds and wrinkles around the neck area. And then going down to the hands, you can see the 3 claws of the hand are painted in a dark gray color. Get some nice more folds and wrinkles and nice muscle definition along the hind legs. Going down to the feet are well sculpted. The feet are actually more proportionate on this Mapusaurus than the giant feet on the Sultrial Venator. They are still a little bit oversized, but I like how the feet are more compressed and compact. You don't really have that big splayed out bird look on some of the other bipedal theropod figures. So I think it looks much better on this model than it does on the Sultrial Venator. And underneath you have some nicely sculpted belly scales, and then you have the typical classic dirty CollectA cloaca, and then some more nice scale detail all the way down the tail with all those large osteoderm. So all in all, a really nicely sculpted figure for just about $8. You really can't, complain too much for a figure in that price range. I think it is a very well done Mapusaurus figure. So let's move on with some comparisons. I do have the Deluxe CollectA Mapusaurus, but unfortunately for the life of me, I can't find it. Sometimes my wife comes into the studio and cleans up and puts things where I can never find them again. So I guess that Mapusaurus is joining some of my other dinosaur figures in limbo. So let's start off with some Giganotosaurus figures from other companies, since Mapusaurus and Giganotosaurus are very closely related. Here it is with the Safari Limited Giganotosaurus, and here it is with the excellent Eofauna Giganotosaurus, and one more Giga. Here it is with the now infamous Papo Giganotosaurus that just wants to give this Mapusaurus a hug. And here it is with some random CollectA standard theropods. Here it is with their hunting T-Rex, and here it is with their walking Spinosaurus. Let me just move them so you can see the Mapusaurus head. And lastly, for these little standard ones, here it is with the standard 2020 Baryonyx. And here it is with some of the other 2020 figures. Here it is with the Fukisaurus, which shows that CollectA can do really cool paint schemes on smaller figures. Like, I love the paint scheme on this Fukisaurus. I just wish the paint scheme was a little bit better on this Mapusaurus. And here it is with some of its release mates. Here it is with the Allosaurus and the Saltrio Venator. And as you can see, I think the feet on the Mapusaurus are much more proportionate on this figure compared to the Allosaurus, and the giant feet on the Saltrio Venator. So final thoughts on this Mapusaurus. I think it's a great figure for that $8 price point. You really can't ask for too much more in that price range, so I do highly recommend you pick up this figure. And it seems like CollectA is running a monopoly on Mapusaurus figures. I think they have 3 different ones now, and I think they're the only dinosaur toy company that's actually done this species of dinosaur. And like I mentioned a couple times, my biggest knock against this figure is the bland color scheme. Other than that, I think it's great. And like I said at the beginning of the review, I got this figure from Everything Dinosaur. Link is in the description if you want to order this figure for yourself. So I only have one more CollectA figure to review for this year, and it is this Allosaurus, and I've been working my way up to that one because I was really looking forward to it. But I have some mixed feelings about that, but we'll get into that when I finally get to that review. So as always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously and is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.